Well guys, we have made it to Glen Affric and we've just got this heavily loaded boat back on the water. It's so loaded we can't fasten the top flap, but it's lovely and calm at the moment. Some lovely views there, the surrounding forests. So we're just going to press on and find a camp. So we made it into Glen Affric. You can see the loch behind me, the loch that no Englishman dare pronounce. It's just amazing, it's so flat. And we've landed up at this beach and we've come to our usual camp spot. This will be the third time this year we've camped here, but it's a good little spot and you get some fantastic views up the loch there and some of the surrounding woodlands. But as we paddled in, we noticed some really strange reflections on the side of the loch, where the rock kind of met the water. The water was so still and at just the right level that it was creating these weird kind of symmetrical patterns. I'll roll some footage so you can see what it looked like as we were paddling by. I also took some photographs and I've just kind of changed them from landscape to portrait on my phone as well, so I'll try and put a few of those into the video as well, so you can just have a look at these weird kind of reflections we were getting. They look like carvings that you might see on the side of, you know, ancient temples from the Incas or other kind of ancient civilizations. It was just bizarre, really strange. Quite eerie as well. I mean, you can see behind the mists rolling in. It's a bit different to the last time we were here in summer, but at least there's no midges. But we have to be a little bit careful coming in because you can see behind the tree stumps are all exposed again. I remember from last year, I think, is it in shot or is it? That's just out of shot actually. There's a little island there, and you've got to be careful coming in case you get stuck on that. And there's like a ring of trees as well underneath, and what you don't want to do is get the boat, because there's a lot of stuff in the boat that weighs a lot. You don't want to get stuck on a tree stump, you know, in like 4 foot of water, because if you can't get off it you're gonna have to jump out, which is not what you want to do in these temperatures. So we've got the tent in this clearing here. There's been a bit of action going on since the last time we were here, as you can see. Someone's left the gaiter. Can you imagine walking out of camp and not realising that you've only got one gaiter on your leg? And you've got a young birch tree here, and a lot of birch sticks, some very large pine, a fire pit with some unburnt birch in there, and another big chunk of pine. Now that birch is probably unburnt because it looks like they've chopped it off this stump here, and this stump isn't dead, so the tree was still alive. There's a good clean cut there, so someone's obviously sawn down a tree to burn, but even a half-wit would be able to tell that that tree is still alive. But you get all kinds of idiots coming out camping, don't you? But it's a good spot though. It's the one we tend to camp at the most when we're up here. So when we were here last, which I think was September, the water levels were really high because there's a dam on this loch, so all the water must have been retained, and it was like it was right up to where my boots are now. But you can see it's really low at the minute. It's right down there. You've got this lovely kind of clearing here. This is how the ancient forests would have looked. You wouldn't have had just constant closed canopy. You'd have had these types of openings in between, sometimes larger than this, they reckon. But I love this glen. It just reminds us so much of Sweden, mainly because it's just forested and it looks a bit more natural than some of the other lochs in Scotland. You can see the water's so low. You've got the tree stumps poking out, the spooky tree stumps. Yeah, such a great place. Well guys, it's time for a beer review on this lovely beach. We've got a polar ice walls here from the Wildcard Brewery. We're losing light, so I just go, and I'm losing my eyesight. I can't see any of the details on the back here. Apart from the strength, it's a 4%. So let's give this a go. Well, I've already opened it because I've got to have my gloves on because it's pretty cold now. It's about 2 degrees at the moment, but it filled the air with a lovely fruity scent. So I think it's going to be a bit fruity. The polar ice walls are a vast geographical phenomenon that surround the flat Earth. Without these walls, the oceans would drain from the face of the disc. It's a bit weird, isn't it? Do you think they're just taking the piss, or do you think this is like this brewery or like the proper flat earthers? I mean, there's tons of flat earthers kicking around in there. So I'm drinking flat earth beer. Polar ice walls, that's what keeps the water on the flat earth apparently. It's really still. All I can hear is Trish eating a packet of crisps in the tent. Yeah, so it's not a bad beer, that. The Polar Ice Walls, Wildcard Brewery, fully paid up members of the Flat Earth Society by the looks of it. Morning everyone. I didn't do much filming last night. I had a couple of beers, we had some dinner, and then I had my sleeping bag out at 8:30. I was knackered, couldn't keep my eyes open. So I must have been asleep by 9. So it's 10 o'clock now. So I've had a good night's sleep. But I woke up at 6 o'clock and Trish was awake as well. And she was like, oh, it's really cold. So we put the fire back on. I put my bed so I can just lean over in the morning without getting out of the sleeping bag and start the fire. So I burnt off the last of the wood. So one of my jobs today is to paddle back and collect some more firewood from the truck to keep us going through this evening and then tomorrow morning again, because it got really cold last night. Woke up this morning and the skirt of the tent was frozen, the ground's crunchy underfoot, so it must have got down just below freezing, but it's perfectly still again. But as you can see, there's the low-lying mist. I'm just negotiating my way out of this bay. There's the water seems to have dipped overnight, and as you come out it's pretty shallow, and there's a lot of tree trunks protruding. We've just hit the bottom there. It's not too bad when the canoe is empty like it is now. It just slides over the, I mean, it can float in just a couple of inches of water, but when it's heavy it sits much lower, and it's a real risk of getting snagged on these tree trunks that dot the shoreline of this loch. But it's lovely conditions again, really nice and flat, so I should be able to make fairly decent progress back to the truck. But it's great just paddling like this in these conditions. It's quite rare to get so many days in a row with so little wind. So it's the middle of the afternoon. I've got a bit of afternoon coffee on the go here. We've just had some lunch. We had a couple of those little boil in the bag Wayfarer pouches. Really tasty, but you don't get a lot in them. They're only 400 calories each. So I usually have at least double of that for my lunch. I might be able to lose a bit of weight on this trip, you never know. But I came back with the wood earlier on, and you probably can't make it out on the camera, but the water level is just dropping all the time, and just there where I'm pointing, it's exposing this like spit of land. I mean, we paddled down here yesterday on our way in, and we couldn't do that now, and the same's happening over there. There's a lot of stumps, and basically the loch floor is becoming exposed. And when I came back into this bay earlier on, I couldn't get out of the canoe just down here, because it's basically just quicksand and quick mud. I put my left foot out and I had to pull it out quickly because it was almost coming up to the top of my boot. My leg was just disappearing into the mud, so it's a bit dodgy. Now we're not going to get out of here tomorrow with a heavy laden canoe. It's just not going to happen. We'll get caught as we're going out and we'll get stuck, so we're going to have to carry all the gear over to the other side of that ridge there and just launch the canoe from there into the deeper water, and we'll head back up to the truck. So I'll give you a look at the lightweight bushcraft kit that I've brought along on this trip. So first of all, I've got a Mora bushcraft knife. I actually bought this in Mora in Sweden. It's a nice knife actually, fairly inexpensive. I think it cost me about £28. It's got a lovely rubber grip on it, which is pretty useful when it's wet. You know, that's quite a sticky grip, fits my hand perfectly. You can't strike a fire steel with this knife, so you need to bring a striker along if you're going to use a fire steel. It's got a Scandi grind, stainless steel, this one. It's fairly lightweight, fairly inexpensive, fairly robust. You've got a sheath to carry it in there. And then I've got the Bushcrafters Classic, the little Laplander saw. And then I've got the Gransfors Brook hand hatchet. Now I've done a review of this probably about a year ago now, and it was mainly for entertainment purposes. It was during lockdown, and there were some interesting comments. Some people were saying, you know, this is useless. It's far too small. It's only good for kindling or carving. And other people were saying, yeah, I use this axe all the time. It's great. It's lightweight. It's very portable. But since then, I've actually carried this on my belt pretty much all the time in the woods. It was after I fell over with my trekking axe on my belt and it bust a rib. So I don't carry an axe on my belt anymore, apart from this one, which is small enough not to do a lot of damage. And I use it all the time, and it is a really, really useful axe. I've just split some wood, which has been probably about that thick, and it'll split it no problem if you use the kind of like sideways technique. It's perhaps not as efficient if you're trying to swing to split rounds, but then if you pair it with a saw that size, you only need an axe which is going to split the size of wood that this saw is going to cut, if you know what I mean. You know, you wouldn't pair this axe with a 30-inch bow saw. It's just not going to work. You'll want a proper splitting maul for that. But then you wouldn't bring a kind of a full-size trekking axe along for a saw this big, in my opinion. Obviously, this is just my opinion, and people differ on what they take out with them. But I think that this and this saw is a perfect little combo. This will split anything that will cut. So yeah, I like it. You know, you can actually fit all of this in your pocket as well if you're wearing a pair of the kind of outdoor trousers with a decent sized pocket on. You can just fit the lot in one pocket. So if you're on the lookout for some wood and you're walking around, you can just keep all your tools in one pocket. So yeah, it's a good lightweight portable little combo. So I've managed to forage a bit of wood actually. There was quite a bit lying around, and I used the axe just to take some of the moss off some of the birch sticks, and I was able to go and harvest a bit of pine from some tree top that's fallen down over there by the edge of the loch. So I've got the burner on. Looks like it's doing all right. Actually, I thought it might be a bit smoky because the wood isn't too dry, but it looks all right. Morning everyone. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. We've just managed to check the weather report this morning. We've been so lucky with this trip. We've had virtually zero wind the entire trip, but tomorrow things change, and we've got 30 mile an hour gusts of wind coming through this area, so we timed it perfectly really. So we've got one more night wild camping, which is going to be tonight, but we're going to pack up this morning. We're currently in the process of just putting all our gear away. We'll paddle back to the truck and then we'll drive probably down Glen Affric, I think, and just look for somewhere to camp not too far from the side of the road. And then the bad weather comes in. It's due to come in around 2 to 3 this afternoon, and then it'll get worse during the night, and by tomorrow morning it'll be heavy rain and fairly heavy winds. So it's not too bad, you know, you can't really complain with that at all really. Just getting one night of bad weather out of 7 nights in Scotland in winter. Pretty lucky. Well guys, the packing is underway. The great thing about this tent is the double door system, so like you can both work from one end and pack everything up. I'll just show you the luggage that we're using. I'm using this Lomo dry bag for my wood, and our bedding we've been transporting in it in this I think it's a 100 litre Gull dry bag. And then the kitchen kit we just keep in one of these. It's just a zip up is it Euro Hike or some brand like that, like a little 40 litre bag, and we just keep that in the front of the canoe, so if you want to stop for coffee you can get to it easy. And our personal stuff, we just keep them in these OEX amphibian 30 litre dry bags. So we have one of these each with spare clothes in and all that kind of stuff. And it's a pretty good system, to be honest. On our past couple of trips we used the canoe barrels, but when you're taking more gear I find that dry bags are better because you can compact them down and you can fit your gear in a bit better. So we've managed to lug our gear from one side over to the other of this little peninsula, and hopefully we should be able to launch the boat from here. Although I am looking at the water and it's looking pretty shallow, and there's tree stumps on this bit as well, so we'll have to try and get right out into the deep channel straight away and then stick to the middle of the loch. There is a channel that goes around there, but I noticed yesterday even that was getting shallow. But there's a deeper section just beyond it, and we'll head through there into a little bit of a breeze, but it'll not be too much of a problem. We're just going to cool down for 5 minutes and then load the boat and head off. So I'll catch up with you in a bit. Well, hello everyone. It's been 3 or 4 days since we left Glen Affric. So what happened was we paddled down the eastern end of the loch where we'd left the truck, and we were able to check the weather forecast, and it wasn't looking good. There was some really heavy winds coming and some really heavy rain. So we had a choice. It was either, you know, get in the car and try and find somewhere to wild camp with the tent for the evening, sleep in the car, or get on Airbnb and find somewhere comfortable to stay. So it was a unanimous decision. So we ended up driving over towards Inverness, and we spent the night in this lovely little shepherd's hut. It was really comfortable, to be honest, but the weather was pretty bad. And then we had this place booked after that for about 4 nights. So we've been here for 2 nights already, and it's Christmas Day today, and I'm drinking a lovely ice cold can of Tennent's. So cheers everyone. It's not the best lager, but it'll do. Yeah, so I mean, look at the scenery. This is Loch Curran. What a beautiful place. And the area is teeming with wildlife. We've got this lodge here, and last night we put some peanut butter on a stick to try and entice the local pine marten, and he turned up. You know, we sat there for an hour, and he turned up right next to the window and started feeding on the peanut butter, and it was brilliant. I mean, they're really shy and elusive creatures, very hard to spot, but we got a real good look at this little fella. And there's all sorts. It's a farm with all sorts of, there's llamas down there and everything. There's a red squirrel that comes every morning to raid the nuts on that bird table. There's a woodpecker who turns up every morning as well. And then there's tons of little chaffinches, blue tits and all sorts that come to the table over there. I've got some cake that I put out for them every morning. I just sit there with my coffee watching the birds feed. Really relaxing and mellow few days we've been out doing a bit of hiking and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so that's just an update, and I guess I'll be drawing the little adventure to a close now. We've got another couple of nights here, and then it'll be back to the grind, unfortunately. So yeah, there's not much else to say, guys, apart from thanks for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll catch you again in the next one.